What's the longest you've played a game before making up your mind on it?
That's a tough one because in some cases I feel like I owe it to the people who made it to give it a shake. So probably like 8-10 hours.
That's a generous shake.
It is.
That's a firm, sweaty shake right there.
That's right.
Watch out. The gap in the door. It's a separate reality. The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you? This is the Insert Credit Annual, our traditional yearly relitigation of one question. While other shows debate the game of the year, we take this time of renewal to ask ourselves once again, what's the best video game of all time? I'm Alex Jaffe, the host of this podcast.
I'm Frank Cifaldi, a participant in this podcast.
I'm Ash Parrish, a new red shirt rookie season debut assistant of this podcast.
You're not an assistant.
I'd call you an ingenue.
Ingenue, I like that.
I'm Brandon Sheffield, the what?
You're the founder, dude.
The founder
talk
of
your
the
shit.
podcast.
Yeah.
You're the CEO.
Fly your
CEO
flag.
of the podcast.
You're the boss of the podcast.
That's right.
I do think of you as my boss in this context. I legitimately do.
Well, that's very funny.
Well, stop it.
Yeah. Brendan's above even the boss. So I like to throw a little bit of a wrinkle every time we do this. Otherwise, we're just doing the same list every year. This year, I've decided to adjust the parameters a little bit to help us determine our best video games. We still have plenty to choose from. I took a very small sliver of games off the board, just 13% of all video games.
Made before 2010.
Yeah. This year, our panel was only allowed to nominate video games that are no longer commercially available through first-person markets. If you can get it through a digital marketplace, if you can get it from a physical first-party market, if you can walk into a store and get it, that's not a game you can nominate. It's got to be something you can only get through secondhand markets, something you might have to pirate, something that might not even exist anymore. That's all on the table. These are the video games that need preservation, which is to say, most of them. Who knows, in the fullness of time, the other 13 will likely fall into that category as well, but this year we're searching through the dustbin of what we got. We're going to have 12 games overall, with each of our panelists nominating 4 each. We're going to start with Frank, and go to Ash, go to Brandon. They're going to talk a little bit about the game they nominated, and then we're going to figure out collectively where we're putting it on this list. Frank, as is our tradition, we'll start with you.
Is that the tradition?
Yeah, I think so. Cool.
It is now.
Do we want to talk a little bit about our selection process first?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
Just because when you first suggested it, I thought this is going to be difficult. And then I thought about it for like 2 seconds, and I was like, oh no, it's
looked
not.
at your PC Engine wall.
Yeah,
Immediately
it's
to your
true.
left.
I did just look around me, and I was like, oh, never mind. So at first I was like, okay, I'm going to limit this way, way further. And I did, but not in the way I initially thought. At first I was like, okay, I'm just going to do games on the Saturn that were published by Sega.
For all 4 of your games.
For all 4. Because I could do...
Oh, I think we might have some overlap.
I could do tons of those, but then I decided not to do that. I don't know. It's too expected in a way. So here are my rules that I made for myself. 1, there've been no remakes of any of these.
Good.
2, not purchasable in any region. I think that's obvious, but there were some where I was like, oh, but I guess technically you can still get this one in Korea or whatever. Another, I haven't put it up for a greatest of all time list before, and people might have heard of it, is another one that I went for.
That's a good one to have.
And then I have one other final rule that I set for myself, which you can guess later at the end if you want. Yeah.
Okay.
See
Yeah.
if you
Let's
can
try to
it
figure out the pattern.
It's not very difficult.
All right.
But see if you can figure it out.
So I did not limit myself to those rules. I allowed games that had remakes.
Okay.
I allowed games that
Interesting.
might be available not in English, for example. So I was not as strict.
Oh, I also, another big category of ones I wouldn't mention is games I talk about all the time. So Outrun Online Arcade, is not on here.
Oh, I was expecting that to make it.
Yeah, Asuka's not on here. Garodan Break Blow's not on here. Ribbit King, Knights, Spec Ops: The Line is not on here.
No.
Ranger X is not on here. So all those games that are insert credit staples are not being mentioned by me.
Ash, this is your first insert credit list episode. How did you approach this one?
So I stuck very much to the letter of the rule as I understood it. And it was actually a bit harder for me because I don't have the, I guess, foundation of video games that you guys do because you've been playing for a lot longer than I have on a lot older systems.
You're not an old head.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not at all. So it was actually really hard for me to find things because there were things that I thought of that would be, that would fit this list that actually didn't. And I was actually quite surprised. But there were some that were really good games that did fit the criteria that I chose. And I was just reaching back for games that I thought of that aren't really well known or aren't that popular or have fallen out of vogue that I figured, okay, there's no way that they are still available. Because I had to reach back to my childhood. Like, what did I play back then that is probably not available now? Because most of the games that are near and dear to me exist some way, at least on a digital format. Like Lost Odyssey, God bless it, is still available on the Xbox Live store for as long as it is available. Then, the minute that shit falls off, like that's number one. I was actually really surprised. I'm scared about Bloodborne because that only exists for the PlayStation 4 on the PlayStation 4 store. They have not ported that over to PC yet, where it'll live for 1,000,000 years and forever. God bless every one of us. Amen. So the minute that PlayStation decides that they don't want to support the PlayStation 4 store anymore, probably around like PlayStation 6 or whatever, that game is going to be gone unless they do something about it.
Oh, they'll do something.
I don't know. They haven't yet. Like, if you're not going to put Bloodborne on PC by this point, you probably aren't.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Bloodborne also doesn't have like a PS5 version. You can play it on the PS5, but it is a PS4 version. They didn't optimize that for PS5 or the PS5 Pro or anything like that. It's there. It's still there by the grace of God, but I don't know for how much longer. But obviously that can't go on the list. But yeah, that's how I chose my stuff.
Just as a brief aside, because you might not know this, Bloodborne is pushing PS4 emulation hard. Like that is what is driving PS4 emulation on computers to happen.
Yeah.
And there have been like significant moves in the last couple months.
It's been said that the internet
it kind
is for
of
porn.
runs technically now. So it's getting there.
Let me say that again. It's been said that the internet is for born.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a funny time thinking through and looking at some of these games and being like, okay, I don't think this is available. And then I would have this brief moment where I would have a game that I thought was really good for this list, and then I would find out it is available, and then I'd be like, oh. And then I'm like, wait, no, it's good. It's good that it's available. I want
it's a really good cheat, and hopefully this isn't news to you both, is literally anything on the Wii, DS, or 3DS.
Oh, let's not give away the ghost too much. Frank, do you want to tee up your first nomination?
I didn't bother with those.
Sure. Yeah, and I will say if I have another thing that maybe I didn't mention, it's that I was trying to gear toward popular things people have heard of that might be surprising. So I'm going to start with one of those. My strategy being the first one is one that maybe is most likely that someone else might have done, so that I beat them to it.
All right.
So my first nomination is Rock Band.
Oh,
interesting, because Guitar Hero was on my list and I decided not to do it because I felt that was a little weird because, yeah, that's not available, but that there's another limiting factor with that. And that's the controllers that you need to play that properly. Like, they don't make those anymore. They're not going to. It makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess I don't want to give the publishers too much credit for that, but it was on my list, but I took it off. So we were thinking on the right wavelengths. But yeah, I'll have another one for you, which I'm sure you all can guess that is in that vein that also fits the criteria.
So you mean the first Rock Band, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I never played Rock Band 2, so for me it's Rock Band 1.
Because Rock Band 4
we can
is
just
available.
call it, let's just call it Rock Band as a concept. Rock Band 4 is available. Is that what you said?
Yeah, on PS4.
I didn't even know there was a 3.
Okay.
So it's available on PS3 digitally. Rock Band 4 is, right?
PS4 digitally.
Okay. So here's the thing. What I decided was, even if technically you can download Rock Band, the fact that you have to get the instrument secondhand, to me, makes it a secondhand only game.
Yeah.
I don't know. Part of my participation in the show, I think, is that I'm always trying to like bend Jaffe's rules a little bit. So I did make the decision. I didn't even look to see if you could download Rock Band. I assume you can.
Okay.
The first one.
Yeah, Ash, you weren't here on the episode where we ranked the best consoles and Frank nominated the PC.
I still think that should have
Let's
been
not
a
get
fair
back
thing
into
to nominate
Yeah.
because it is
Well, you
literally the only thing I play video games
It's
on.
on the list.
It's a platform.
It's a platform. It's
Yeah.
not a
A
console.
Console to me is a platform.
It
Wow.
still feels dishonest
Anyway.
to me, but it's settled law already.
Brandon would like to
Anyway.
move on.
So yeah, Rock Band. I have not experienced since then as good of a multiplayer, just hangout kind of game that
Mhm.
appeals to me. I don't know that I could go back to Rock Band. I probably couldn't. Like even if someone set it up and it's like, let's have fun, I'd be like, nah, I don't know. The moment's passed for me. But I think it was in its time a pretty incredible game. Like there was a lot of going to people's houses that happened when that game came out. That I've not wanted to do with other games since then. I think that it was really smartly designed. I mean, it's building off Guitar Hero, whatever, but like the fact that 4 people could play in just like very various like skill levels, but they're still playing the game. Someone could sing and just like put it on like I don't give a damn mode, right? Where like you don't have to hit any notes, but you're still like performing and playing. I like video games as toys sometimes as opposed to games with rules. And yeah, Rock Band, think about it.
Okay.
I will. My light criticism of this one is, I guess, first of all, that you can still purchase Rock Band 4 and also Rock Band VR, which you don't need instruments for.
That is not the same game.
No. You
No.
need the physicality of the instrument.
They also did make new controllers when they did Rock Band 4, but that was 10 years ago. So you do still have to buy them. But yeah, it's a little stretch since you can buy it. But it is interesting these days. Pretty much anytime I go into a used game store, there's somebody talking about buying those used controllers, which is very interesting because they were flooding
playing Stairway to Heaven on them.
They were flooding the Goodwills. Playing. They're testing it out in the store. They were flooding the Goodwills for ages, and now it's like people want those. They want those. They want that experience back. It was the pandemic, especially, that caused a big rush of people wanting to do that. Like if you have a family and your family is stuck inside, Rock Band was a thing that you could all do together. And I played Rock Band with a whole bunch of people for quite a while, and it was a fun experience. It does feel like that experience is kind of gone.
What were your best songs?
Oh geez, I don't know. It was all a bunch of the like 90s alternative songs that I actually really don't like and spent all high school trying to avoid. But because they were unavoidable, they're like the only songs I know the lyrics to. So it's just like Stone Temple Pilots and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and stuff was all the ones that I would do. I was always on vocals.
I like Soundgarden. Ash, you're up.
So, since I've never done this before, do we do this in terms of like what is our worst to first, or just?
I told you what I did, which is I tried to block anyone who might have the same one as me. You could do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's all your own strategy, how you want to approach it.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Do you want to sabotage these two? Do you want to be nice?
No one's sabotaging
I didn't
me.
realize I didn't make a game out of it.
If there's
Yeah.
a competition, and I don't think there is, but if there's a competition, it's to make sure that your nominees are on the list near the top, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
If you want to strategize around that.
Yeah, you want to bully your picks to the top of the list.
Mhm.
I don't care about that, but
Yeah,
I'm actually going to throw everyone a bit for a loop for this, and I'm going to be 100% sincere when I say my next suggestion. Concord. I believe it was a massive failure on Sony's part to release that game and then retract it. I think that is worse for the developers involved. What happened to that game was a tragedy, even though, yeah, sure, it wasn't the best. But shit, Foam Stars is still going on. Square Enix is like, okay, you guys can at least play that for a couple months. Sony didn't even give it that. Like, these people worked for almost a decade making this game, and they did release it. It got put out into the world, and then the higher-ups didn't even give it a chance to breathe before they decided, no, this is going to fuck up our balance sheet. It already fucked up their balance sheet. So, like, the damage was done. it should have had time to breathe and had time for people to get to know it before it was unceremoniously yanked and Firewalk Studios was shut down.
Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League got to run away.
Yeah.
So this you said it wasn't the best, and this is the best game of all time list. So this is on here primarily for like a symbolic reason.
Yeah,
sure, that's fine.
Or are you nominating the game that it could have been?
No, because I think Sony should have known a long time ago that trying to release a dripless hero shooter in the year of our Lord 2023 or 4 rather was not going to be a good idea. It was a non-starter. They should have killed that baby in the crib
rather than let it come out at all.
Yeah.
Interesting tactics we got for best games of all time.
Yeah.
I forgot. I'm going to be honest. I forgot that was also the stipulation.
That's the main. That's what the episode's
That's kind
called.
of the main part of it, Ash. But okay.
Well, it's my protest vote then.
All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Very good.
I'm
Valid.
protest voting.
I don't think it goes above Rock Band, though.
I
No, I
don't
think
either.
I think it'll probably wind up at the bottom, and just being on the list
That's fair.
Yeah.
is its caveat.
Which was Ash's only goal here.
Yes.
All right.
Congratulations.
I mean, I feel like all of these games are going to be old, but we have to remember that there are games
They're
that are
still
currently
happening.
being
Yes.
made that are being taken away for dumb reasons.
Yeah, I think that's why it deserves a spot for
yes.
sure.
Thank you.
Brandon, do you have one?
I sure do. Which one do I want to do first? I will do Silent Hill.
Ooh.
Interesting.
So Silent Hill, the original, is a game that you can't buy. And it's pretty good video game. I don't think it's on like PS1 classics even. Maybe it was on one of those re-releases. But
I thought it was on like PS3.
It's
no,
not on.
Wrong about that?
No. It's never had a remake. And it was maybe available in PlayStation Store on PS3 maybe at some point. I'm not sure. But
So it was available, but it's no longer.
yeah. So anyway, Silent Hill, that's probably the parent of modern horror games in many ways, I would say. An evolution from Resident Evil into a kind of a different, more psychological breed of horror, I think. Less combat oriented, more surviving oriented, extra weird, deeper themes. And it's a game that is really interesting to play even now. Still looks good now, still looks scary now. Highly, highly recommended, high quality game. So Silent Hill, that's what I would say.
I will add that if you're like me and Silent Hill 2 is like your entry into the series, I think Silent Hill 1 is an interesting like prototype of Silent Hill 2, if that makes sense. I wouldn't say it's like more of it, but it's like, it's kind of neat to see like what I consider a first pass of Silent Hill 2. So I like it for that reason.
Yeah, I think of it as a sort of a world building thing for the Silent Hill universe on the whole, but it's, to me, the coolest thing about it is the way that video games can not show you things, and that being scary, because that's what horror movies are, or like, I forget who was it, Stephen King, Wes Craven, one of those people said that the scariest thing in the world is a closed door. You don't know what's behind it. Silent Hill, with its fog and its ambiguities and the sound that happens when an enemy is approaching and you have no idea where it is, that stuff was all like, it had so many really strong ideas that still hold up.
First of all, I was surprised that this game is not available anymore. I was sure it would be.
Yeah.
Second, I was sure that a different game from this series would be the one that made the list. And I don't want to spoil anyone coming up, but like, I think the example of great game you can't play anymore by any means is PT.
I was going to say, like, can we put an asterisk next to Silent Hill and it says PT?
Yeah, and it is interesting, but I would rather play Silent Hill than PT myself. So that's where I landed.
Fair. It's a game
on it.
Yeah.
But PT is certainly another good example of one of these kinds of things. Yeah, Silent Hill's more a game than as PT is an experience.
I have some thoughts about Silent Hill that I am not yet prepared to share because my mom might be listening to this episode. I will leave it at that.
Okay.
Frank, we're back
Sorry,
to the
Mom.
top. Oh, hold on. We got to rank
we gotta
this.
rank
rank
this
it.
guy. Come on.
We got to rank
now.
this baby.
I'm pretty sure Silent Hill goes at the top.
Yeah.
No offense to
You would
anybody.
be right.
Yeah, absolutely. No questions there. Now that we've ranked, we're back to Franked.
Uh, my next nominee, it's another 4-player experiential, kind of almost not even a game that also you could make a actually argument is sort of available. NBA Jam.
Oh.
The actual original NBA Jam is not available on anything. The last time it was released was an arcade 1-up mini cabinet, which may or may not still be at your Walmart, but I don't think that counts. I don't think that counts as an available video game to have to like buy a stand-up cabinet.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay.
This is like, I don't think of it as a sports game. I barely think of it as a video game. I think of it as like basically interactive theater. You all know the term rubber banding. Like, this is just rubber banding the game. This is a game that is programmed to always be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your stats are essentially meaningless in this game. Like, it is a game that is designed for you to pick the basketball player you want to be, as long as it's not Michael Jordan, and like just run around and be them and like compete, quote unquote, in a game that's always close. Because this game will, like, if you're doing too good, it'll just make you start missing shots. It just always keeps the score close. And it always, even if you know the magic trick, even if you like look through the source code like I have, it still feels good. And like, to me, that's magic. So NBA Jam.
I'm going to get emotional about that because this is something that I did not know. And I played NBA Jam, and I'm not a basketball person. Like, you can, like, I don't do basketball. This is not a face for basketball.
What does that
What
mean?
is a basketball face?
Why are you framing your face?
Because I'm voguing, okay? Like,
yeah. You can either have a face for voguing or a face for basketball.
Are you saying you're too pretty for basketball?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
I mean, if that's what you want to say.
That's why Madonna was in a baseball movie and not a basketball movie.
Oh, that's true.
Keep
That's
up,
true.
Frank.
That's a good point.
Sorry.
Is there crying in basketball?
There is crying in basketball because I'm doing it now. I was forced to play NBA Jam with my cousins, and that was the whole thing that got me into video games, because I was not into video games, but I had to be so I could play with the cousins that were my same age. And we would play NBA Jam. And we were, two kids growing up in Gary, Indiana, in the shadow of the Chicago, the 1991 Chicago Bulls, like the 2-3-peats. So we would play this game and we would have so much fun, like switching off between who got to play as the Chicago Bulls and then who got the bullshit teams, but it was always close. I had no idea that was like designed in the game itself. And I just remember having so much fun with that cousin who passed away at 16, which just completely devastated me.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and to know that like our fun was like designed, like embedded in the code, like doesn't take away, it enhances it, because I have so many good memories of playing that game in particular with him. And to know that like the way, because we had so much fun because it was designed to be that way, is just, I don't know. Thank you, Frank. I'm sorry, I'm always the one crying on these damn episodes. One of you has to cry sometime. I'm gonna
my goal
digitally
is to
punch
make you cry.
I'll think about it. Well, that's lovely. It's interesting.
Okay, what are you gonna say now?
No, it's just interesting for Frank to be the one who's continuing to stretch the definition of what is not available. Because I can just go to Arcade 1-Up and buy this new right now. I can just add it to my cart.
Oh, I will say that this was a discussion in the study that this entire premise is based off of, and for the sake of the study, we considered it commercially unavailable.
I mean, okay,
Interesting.
I understand what you mean, Brandon. Like, it doesn't fit the exact like letter of the law. But if we think about your normal average consumer,
Yeah.
Right.
how often is your normal
it's true.
average consumer going to go out and buy a 1-up arcade cabinet?
I was just
Yeah.
being really strict. I was being
Yeah.
strict about it.
You're-
And
yeah.
I'm realizing
Yeah.
that was not everybody's plan. That's all that I'm coming
Like,
to here.
approach this if we aren't freaks with disposable income, just like your regular average gamer person who wants
Yeah.
to play NBA Jam is not going to buy a
I was
cabinet.
going letter of the law, not available, cannot buy it.
We're all going to this Magic the Gathering game with our own decks.
Yeah, that's right. It's true. Anyway, NBA Jam's real cool.
I would put it under Silent Hill
It had a lot of
and
neat
above
things to it.
Concord.
Yeah. Well, also you can't buy a 4-player NBA Jam, I guess, because it doesn't
There you
have.
go.
It's only got 2.
The 4-player experience is relegated to history.
Yeah, NBA Jam was for me one of those games where I also don't have a face for basketball, and despite that, I thought that it was fun because it was so bombastic, and that it was one of those games that got me thinking about arcade versus reality. Or like the pursuit of arcadey style video games versus the pursuit of realistic style video games. And where I land on that is very much in the arcade zone versus the realism zone. And Midway's whole thing was taking things that you recognized and then amping them up really significantly to where you still recognized it. You still knew that it was basketball, but it was ridiculous. And there was things were on fire and stuff, and it gave you more of the feeling of excitement of basketball than doing something realistic. I would say,
yeah,
more of the excitement of watching basketball, or like when I was forced to play basketball in PE sometimes, when I would accidentally shoot a 3-point shot and it would go in, like that.
Wasn't that
feeling
crazy? Like how
how did this occur?
Why did it go in there?
Yeah. I would say NBA Jam is good at simulating the experience of watching a game, wishing really hard that something would happen, and then it happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, something else I'll add too is that I think it might be the first game, the arcade version specifically, not the home one, where the players on the court were recognizably the players. You know, they were actually like photo captured players. You might have gotten that in like, I don't know, like Jordan versus Bird with only exactly two players, you know, but this is the first time where you just picked whatever team you liked and you got to actually see your favorite players on the court as long as they weren't Michael Jordan.
Yeah. And it is an interesting thing that I was talking about arcadey versus realism, but they did sort of both because you had the real players doing fantastical things. It's pretty cool.
And this is also, we should say 93, 94, and like the NBA was just culturally huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
This game, if you weren't around for it when it came out, like this was everywhere. Like everyone played NBA Jam. Players in the NBA would like have cabinets in their airplanes as they flew to other cities.
They made one with Michael Jordan in it just for Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I will dispute that, but anyway.
Okay.
Rappers had not only had it in their dressing rooms, they put it NBA Jam. I wonder what video game has been in the most hip hop songs.
Ooh.
And I wonder if it's NBA Jam.
I wonder if it's Grand Theft Auto.
Oh,
could be Grand Theft Auto. It could be Madden.
Call of Duty.
What is the question again?
What video games are mentioned the most in rap songs?
Okay.
All right, that's your challenge. That's your homework challenge.
Yeah.
I will say that I can confirm that there was a custom ROM for Ken Griffey Jr. because we have it.
Oh.
KFJ.
Okay. Where are we ranking this?
Personally, yeah, I'd put it below Silent Hill.
I would put it below Silent Hill and I would put it below Rock Band.
Yeah, I'm on the fence between NBA Jam and Rock Band because they're kind of the same experience. Which one's better? I think I'd put NBA Jam above it just for accessibility reasons.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Sure. And also you can buy it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go Silent Hill, NBA Jam, Rock Band, Concord. That's the list so far. Ash, what's your second game?
My second game is Tekken 3.
Nice.
Tekken 3.
I was actually really surprised because I was searching to make sure that you couldn't buy this on the digital storefront. And you can buy Tekken 2. You can buy Tekken 4 and 5. You can obviously buy Tekken 7 and 8. But you can't buy Tekken 3 or Tekken 1 for that matter. I couldn't find that one either. So Tekken 3 was the Tekken that I had growing up on the PlayStation. And
Same.
so that's why it's the one that I put on this list because it's a great fucking fighting game. And everyone should play it, even though it's a little weird now and antiquated not antiquated, but it feels weird as a fighting game, knowing like with Smash Brothers out there and like Street Fighter. And it's a very more toned down, considered fighting game that is still huge today. And I love whenever there's an Evo and I can watch Tekken tournaments because they're so much fun. They're so diverse. Like fighting games in general, I love them. They're the best esport out there. And it's good to see that franchise has the longevity it does, which is why it's so surprising that all of the games in its history are not available. Like, I don't think that's the case with Street Fighter. Would I be incorrect?
No, Street Fighter, you can buy all of them still.
Yeah,
currently.
yeah. So I just think it's weird that you can't for Tekken. And somebody should do something about that.
Tekken 3, it's the one with Gon in it. Maybe that's why you can't get it anymore.
I love Gon. Is he like a licensed character that I don't know
he's
about?
he's from a manga. He's a Masashi Tanaka manga character.
Oh, maybe that's why then.
Yeah.
From Hunter x Hunter?
No, different gun. This one's
Okay.
a little dino.
Oh, yeah, that little guy. Okay,
A little dino
that's what
who
we're
you
talking
can
about.
use to play volleyball.
Was it on PSN, on PS3 when that was a thing?
I don't know. I obviously can't search anymore because the PS3 store no longer exists, but I searched for it and I can't fucking find it.
It was, I believe at one time it was there on PSN, but not anymore.
Lame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
Tekken 3 is the only Tekken I really played.
Yeah, same.
Tekken 2 was the big one around my sphere.
And that one you can still get.
That one you can still get.
It was never on PS3, so I think it must be a weird licensing thing. Because
Mhm.
PS3 was very much like, just give us the ROM and we have an emulator that works.
And it
right?
probably is that dang little dinosaur.
Well, here's the thing. The dinosaur was only added for the console version, so there wouldn't really be a problem porting the arcade version.
Other than it costs money.
There you go.
It costs money to port an arcade game, where as opposed to if you have a PS1 emulator that's just like made to play any game
Yeah.
as it was on the PS3, then you just kind of drop in a game and maybe make a couple fixes.
That makes me wonder if they've had any problems porting Soul Calibur 4, the one with like Darth Vader in it.
And Gerald and shit.
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
Gerald in that one?
Yeah, there's one with Zelda in there. That's
Yeah,
the one where
Soul
they did.
Calibur 2, the GameCube version had Zelda in it.
That's right.
I wonder if that's been ported.
I'm gonna say probably not.
So what you're saying is we should stop doing crossover episodes because that leads to licensing shit
Exactly.
issues
Mhm.
in the far future.
Yeah, this
Which is
is
why
a,
you can't buy Def Jam Fight for New York anymore.
This is a major problem
That's right.
in comics as well. Our editor is telling us that Tekken 3 is included in Tekken 5 or 6 or 7 as like a
Oh.
feature you could play in that game.
Well, there we go.
That does-
I guess you can buy it. Nice.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna allow it if the game is not immediately accessible.
Okay.
How would I know to look for
Also,
that?
yeah, you didn't know that. Like, how would you know that? Yeah.
I didn't allow games that were, for example, in a Yakuza game in
Right.
the arcade in a Yakuza.
Yeah.
But that's my own rule. Do you know if Def Jam Fight for New York in Japan had extra characters? Had some
Were they
Japanese
Japanese
rappers in
rappers? Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Going back to our conversation about Japanese rap the other day, which was quite illuminating, and I appreciate the recommendations that came out of that.
Fun times.
All right. Where are we ranking Tekken 3?
I have a feeling all of my choices are going to be at the bottom.
That's
No.
usually Frank's role.
There you go, Frank. You've got another
Yay.
worse Frank. Yeah.
I've evolved.
Yeah.
Personally, I would put it below Silent Hill and above NBA Jam, but that's just because I prefer a fighting game to
A
an
basketball
arcade
game.
sports game. Yep.
I do not. So where are you on that, Ash?
I enjoyed NBA Jam more, so I would put it under NBA Jam.
That sounds good to me.
All right.
All right. Okay, that goes smack in the middle of the list. That brings us to Brandon, your second choice.
It's me. It's my time. I'm going to go with Virtua Cop 2.
Hey!
This is going to represent basically all light gun games, which you pretty much can't play a light gun game in the real way with a light gun anymore. Because we don't have CRTs. There are some, you can do like VR games, you can do certain kinds of things with HD TVs. The Wiimote got close with some things, but you can't play a regular light gun game. I think Virtua Cop 2 is one of the most fun examples of it as well. You know, you can shoot a guy in the nuts, and he has a special animation for it. I think that's very important. On the Saturn version had branching paths as well, which was before Time Crisis or any of those others were doing that kind of thing, and before Resident Evil Dead Aim, where you could actually use a controller on it and stuff. But Virtua Cop 2 is going to be a stand-in for light gun games in general, I guess I would say. But I chose that one because I like it. It's got good music. It's got a good visual style. And yeah, you can't buy it. And even if you could, how would you play it?
I couldn't tell you.
Anyone else play Virtua Cop 2?
No, I played Area 51 like everybody else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Boom. I don't
Blasted.
know. I don't think so. Was it an arcade game?
It was an arcade game and then a Saturn game.
I think I might have played it in the arcade. Maybe. I don't know.
It was a pretty good one. And
Featuring Michael Rage Hardy, James
right.
Smarty Cools, and Janet Marshall.
Janet Marshall.
Yeah.
Janet is also in Fighters Megamix as a unlockable character, which is pretty cool as in the fighting game situation. Can't get that one either, but that's not what I mentioned.
That's not your nomination.
It's not my nomination.
I like those light gun games. I'd play the Houses of the Deads. I'd play the
typings of. Well, I guess that doesn't count, does it?
Oh, my favorite thing to do back in arcades was not to play the Time Crisis games, but to find people who were doing really well in the Time Crisis games and like let them use my tokens so they could keep going in the game because I wanted to see the end of it.
It's very nice.
So I was like the original Twitch patron.
Dropping those tokens.
Yeah.
I do like those Time Crisis games where you got like a more kinetic movement situation. You can dodge behind things. With Virtua Cop 2, it's all scripted and conscripted, aside from the minor location choices that you get to make. But it's what I chose. So, Virtua Cop 2.
Where are we sticking these pigs?
Down at the bottom.
ACAB includes Virtua Cop, so...
All virtual cops are literal bastards.
Are there any cops in Concord?
Probably.
There's no way to tell.
Yeah, I'd put it above either Rock Band or Concord.
Oh, my problem is Rock Band probably does include the police.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Ha, ha.
That's right. Don't stand so close to me.
I think it's below Rock Band.
Yeah.
I think you are correct.
Okay.
Virtua Cop 2. And that's halfway through our list, so we'll be right back after a quick break.
For some reason, I just didn't pick up on the fact that these are supposed to be the best games.
Yeah.
That's the name of the episode.
I really fucked that one up.
You'll know for next time.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting list.
But no, now that I know that, I can modify my list a little bit. And I think I've got one that will put me back up in better standing.
It's called Super Mario Brothers.
It's not at all.
Bet you can't get new Super Mario Brothers anymore.
You probably can't.
Can't get 3DS games in general, can you?
Correct.
No.
No, you cannot.
Welcome back to Insert Credit. It's time for the second half of our Insert Credit Annual. This is the episode where we rank the best games of all time you can't play anymore unless you really go out of your
Unless you pirate or you buy a mini arcade cabinet.
basically, yeah. Or you find it hidden in another video game. Yes. Frank,
Yeah.
the next nomination is yours.
Okay. I've got a handful left and they're all a little bit odd. But
Nice.
okay, I'm gonna do the most friendly one to the rules. And I'm going to continue my trend of kind of not games. And I'm going to nominate Animal Crossing. Yes, there is a game that you can buy that's called Animal Crossing today, but that is some kind of dollhouse simulator that hates you.
Mm-hmm.
Actual Animal Crossing is a very different game. It's a game about learning to sort of like wedge yourself into an existing system and like actually work within the constraints of your neighborhood and stuff like that, which I found to be a really interesting way of constraining that game. Whereas the one today, I think is, basically you can just do whatever the heck you want, and you're just like the monarch of the society, which I don't think is very cool. And I don't like how they, instead of restricting what you can do, they just made every animation take forever as the the one thing keeping you from doing whatever you want. And I didn't like that change. But original Animal Crossing, I thought, was another interesting, fun, kind of social not game. I played it with my roommates when I moved to San Francisco. It was kind of fun sending each other letters. One of them would take like Polaroids of a character and like put them on the fridge and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't know if it's really even worth like describing what one does in Animal Crossing, but it was a really interesting, unique experience that I think doesn't really exist anymore. I don't know specifically which one I'm nominating. I guess it's either the GameCube or the DS one. I kind of think of them as the same game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think let's go with the GameCube one just because the DS one has, I think, a different title.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's New Leaf.
Yeah, it feels like something Nintendo would re-release at some point.
I disagree. I think they want you to play the
The new
experience
one.
that they call Animal Crossing now.
But I could say there's a Switch 2,
No.
and they go back. I know, and they go back to the Switch Online scenario where you can buy some of their older games.
You think they're going to write a GameCube emulator?
They might do that in 64.
Oh, that's fair. They could do the Japanese version. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they could localize the Japanese version. They might do that, or they might just release it in Japan. It's ripe for them to plumb it, and it is unfortunate that it's not available right now.
I don't think they're going to invest money in it. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way. I think that they might drop it if they have an existing structure to drop it into,
Yeah.
but I don't think they're going to spend any money localizing or porting or anything like that.
It's been out of print for 20 years. I think it's fair to call it a dead game right now.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing its life. I'm saying that I feel like Nintendo should want to bring it back.
And I disagree.
The vintage experience since it's been 20 years.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't know. I guess they do stuff like that, but I
Mhm.
think they're
Yeah.
more focused on what they consider a modern Animal Crossing experience than that.
Certainly.
And one that you have to pay for over and over again on their new DS one, or not DS,
The mobile
the
one?
new mobile one that they just
Yeah.
released a couple days ago. That's like $20.
Oh boy.
Oh, I actually didn't know there was a new one.
It's not new. I think it was it's Pocket Camp, which is
Yeah.
the one that they had before. I think they took it down because it was free to play, and then they put it back up as a premium game.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that's the order of operations. I'm not 100% sure.
Also not a real Animal Crossing game.
No,
No.
certainly not. Where would you rank Animal Crossing?
I go toward the bottom for me. Certainly above Concord.
Oh,
Certainly
yes.
above Virtual Cop as well.
You think so?
I
Yeah,
do.
no cops in Animal Crossing.
Sure there are.
There's
No,
a cop,
I
isn't
feel
there?
like there's a cop in there.
Mr.
There's-
Rossetti is kind of a cop, but he just kind of yells at you. He doesn't do anything. Can't go to jail.
Oh, when I thought there was a cop, I realized I was mixing it up with Tulip, which occupies the same space in my brain as
Yeah.
Animal Crossing.
I thought it was wasn't there like a moose?
A moose cop?
There was a moose,
No,
probably.
he's a booker. Yeah, Booker.
A booker?
Oh, yeah, there's a character named Booker. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
hardly knew
Yeah,
her.
and then there's also one called Copper.
Oh,
Okay,
Okay.
there is a cop in Animal Crossing. You're right.
It's less copy than Virtua Cop. You can't play as a cop.
Yeah.
It's true. They're not shooting anyone in the nuts, but that's their fault. Yeah, I don't know. I might put it below Tekken 3 even. I think it's a little more of a game than Rock Band to me.
Okay,
I would put it under Rock Band and above
that's
Virtual
where I would
Cop.
put it too.
Yeah.
So that sounds like where it goes.
Okay, under Rock Band then.
You should put in parentheses on the list the real one.
You don't think the Switch one is a real one?
No,
Why not?
because it's too dollhousey. It gives you too much control. It's a game. It's no longer a game
No, I agree.
about fitting in. It's now a game about doing whatever you want.
There are specific personality types that are like actively aggressive towards you in earlier Animal Crossing games that they
Yeah, they're less
Oh,
aggressive
interesting.
now. There's still some aggression in there though.
So I didn't play that first one, and I didn't know that the theme of the game had changed over time. So it was less about like making your dollhouse and your house and your island, playing God, and more like you've moved to this new town and now you have to acclimate.
yeah.
Is that? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and you're a wage slave.
I would play that game.
I think the regular DS one, if you get a hold of it, might be a superior one to the GameCube one, but let's just nominate the GameCube one.
I mean, you're the one human in a small town of animal hybrids and none of them trust you. There's some kind of commentary in there, maybe.
I like it. I dig it.
A lot of the things you know from the more modern ones are there. You do like collect furniture and decorate your house and stuff, but you can't like you're not building on the land or anything like that. You just have your little tiny plot, and it is, I wouldn't say hostile, but it is kind of, it's more real. They're not worshiping you as some kind of god.
And there were like whole ass NES games you could play in it.
That's true.
So like Proto Yakuza.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Proto Yakuza.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Okay. This is my third one, right? So I've got
That's
one more
correct.
after this. Okay.
Yep.
So I have to be strategic about this now because now you've gamified it for me when it was not previously gamified. So now I have to think. Yell at me if I get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can't buy Crazy Taxi anywhere.
I think
Yeah,
you
I
can.
thought about that too. I do not believe it's possible to buy the original.
Correct.
You might be able to buy a Crazy Taxi, but you can't buy yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, yeah, I'm gonna annoy everybody on the podcast with my next suggestion. I was just gonna scream, yeah,
No.
in
You,
the
you can't
microphone.
get Tim Walls' Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, we should call it that
They delisted it.
Mm-hmm.
because they're making a new one, but that is specifically not the old one.
They had a Dreamcast collection, but you're lucky
Oh, I'm
3
You're
weeks
so
ago.
lucky you can't buy this.
3 weeks ago, you could have bought it.
I think they swapped the music in that one, to be fair. But
They
I
did
don't
swap
know.
the music,
Yeah.
which, in my opinion, is an improvement. LOL. But
Do you even know what they swapped it for? Second question,
whatever
does it
it
matter?
is, yes, exactly. Whatever it is, it's an improvement.
Yeah.
But yeah, say it's worth putting it on there because Sega just delisted a huge amount of its stuff. I think it's in preparation for something.
They're doing some kind of subscription service. They're doing Sega Plus.
Yeah, they're
We all
doing
know
some
it.
kind of a Sega something, which is, annoying. But
You know
it's
what
weird.
everyone is looking for right now is another subscription service. So
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's going to go really
Jesus.
well.
I want more logins. I just feel
Yeah.
like when I log into something once, it's not enough times. Anyway, Crazy Taxi. Tim
Crazy
Walz.
Taxi. I was trying to make sure that it wasn't available on anything or what, and I couldn't find it. And I thought that was odd. Yeah, I too, like all of you, have memories of the yeah. I didn't play the Sega Saturn version of it.
Dreamcast.
Oh, it was Dreamcast. I'm sorry. I only played the arcade version of it because I used to work at one of those Texas steakhouses where you throw the peanuts on the floor. It was a local chain. It wasn't the Roadhouse, but it was something that was specific to Northwest Indiana. And we had an arcade for some reason. And one of the games in there was Crazy Taxi. And if you had like a quarter to spend and you were on break, you would grab a little basket of the sweet rolls from the little lady who made them in the kitchen, Maria, who I love to death. And you grab a basket of them and you stick your money in the arcade, and that was your lunch break. And yeah, it was a great game. And you should be able to play that name.
And you stick your hands on with the stickiness on that wheel. And you get it all gummed up with the sticky bun goo.
With the cinnamon butter, I was a little bit more civilized than that. I would wipe
Okay.
down.
Did you eat it with chopsticks?
No, where was I going to get chopsticks in a Texas steakhouse?
My issue with Crazy Taxi is that once you realize the game is kind of on a track and faking the idea of a city, it kind of becomes Outrun with extra steps.
No, I don't agree because it is open, and rather than Outrun, it becomes some kind of like freeze tag optimization situation. Because if you watch tool assisted speedruns of Crazy Taxi, as I have, the routing to get the most money is changing and impressive. And it's like you got to drift and then slide up the side of this building.
Oh, okay.
And then
I wasn't aware there was Crazy Taxi meta.
There is definitely some, and it's a great example of Sega at their arcadey best because you understand what a taxi is. It's a thing. It's a car that picks people
Yeah, I
up.
know what a taxi is.
And so you get into this seat and you're ready to go drive to people and pick them up. But it's so clear. You've got this big green circle with a money sign over, and it's like, okay, I got to go get that person.
Yeah.
And then you just have to drive them to the target destination. But you can do it in so many different ways and doing so many different things. You can hit cars. You can not hit cars. You can drift. You can go through some windows of buildings and stuff. There's a lot you can do on your way, and it also, all that happens in such a really, really short period of time, but it's always like kind of a fun new experience to route that for yourself, even as a regular person, in my opinion. I think it's just a really good example of arcade design that makes you feel freer than you are until you realize that there's not that many possibilities, but
It's like NBA Jam in that way.
I mentioned Crazy Taxi, and we're going to rank that in a moment. But
Yes.
just as an aside, Awesome Games Done Quick starts this Sunday. And one of the games is Crazy Taxi.
Oh.
But there's a twist. It's going to have a live backing band. So what I assume
Oh, no.
this means is
it's going to be an
that...
Offspring cover band.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be the actual Offspring.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Or they could get Bowling for Soup and it would be just as good.
There's going to be a guy or person playing Crazy Taxi with a band, I guess, playing covers of the songs while they do the speed run, which I think is incredible, and you should tune in. I think that run is on, when you hear this, it won't be until Saturday, so you won't miss it.
Okay, cool.
Offspring's got to be like a festival circuit band, right? Playing like,
Unless they're on like one of those throwback cruises.
They could be on that. They could be playing like,
I think Ozfest is still a thing, and don't they do Ozfest?
well, I meant more like we don't have the Gilroy Garlic Festival anymore, but something like that.
Yeah. I think they do those kinds. I
have no idea. Is that a West Coast thing? Because I don't know what the fuck that is.
I'm looking at their tour schedule for 2025. They are busy. They're going around everywhere.
Okay.
They got Apple festivals.
Yeah.
I think these days it's all coming back around. All that old stuff can actually headline again now, because 40-year-olds have disposable income.
And we're not like pumping marketing dollars into making new bands that draw crowds. So.
Where are we hailing this Crazy Taxi?
Nice.
Thanks.
I like that. Under Tekken 3.
I'm good with that.
Brandon?
I might put it higher, but I might
Gambit has played off.
Even though I don't like the music at all and I would want to play it muted, I personally would put it below Silent Hill.
Oh, wow. Okay. Frank, are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, Crazy Taxi is our new number 2.
I think that it. Okay, my only hesitation though is that it will be available again in like a month, probably.
Yeah,
we don't know what form it will take.
Okay,
because I'm thinking that it's going to be like a remake, and that's not the same.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so. I think they pulled all this emulated stuff because they're doing an emulator.
Yeah,
they're doing
I think
subscription
that's
on
true.
demand. They're doing Game Tap, but Sega only.
Ugh.
Well,
we have that. That's what the fuck the Sega is on the Nintendo Switch. Why would we do that again?
So the Sega gets all the money.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so while I agree with you, Frank, 2 of your games are purchasable. So I think we gotta just go
Brandon,
with it.
this is your second to last chance to put a game on the list.
Yeah. Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Hey!
Panzer Dragoon Saga. That's a real good RPG that not only can you not buy it, you could barely buy it at the time. Nobody wanted the Saturn anymore. And so it was briefly available for like between $5 and $20 brand new because it came out and then went to clearance. But just a couple of years after that, the price went way up because it's a really good game. The best example I have seen of taking a game from one genre, putting it into another genre, and making it feel like the same game, like it's part of that series for real. I think the second time that happened was the Yakuza series, which is Sega again, when they took a brawler and made it an RPG. In this case, with Panzer Dragoon, they were making a rail shooter and turning that into an RPG, but it still has the same things of like targeting enemies in quadrants. You're still flying along a rail during your combat missions. The visuals in the same genre, but more striking. It's got that music. It's, I think, the best RPG on the Saturn and one of the best RPGs of the generation. And it's a real shame that nobody has played it or can play it. And you can emulate it, but otherwise, you just can't do it. And also, it's like a full RPG with a really weird vibes and a bunch of interesting ideas. And it's like 8 to 10 hours for the whole thing. So anybody who was on the fence, it's short.
I didn't know it was short.
Yeah.
I'll add a little insider info, which is that I don't believe it's a licensing issue. I believe it's a tech issue that has prevented this game from coming out because
I think so too.
I just mentioned GameTap. I worked at GameTap. We had a license for Panzer Dragoon Saga. We just couldn't get it to work.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So that is something that Sega did sell us. So I believe that they do have everything aligned where they could do it. So I don't think it's a licensing thing. Like they can't track down the composer or something like that. I think it's purely a tech thing because Saturn's hard to do.
Yeah, they were really pushing it with that thing. Like there are other games do this too, but the main character Edge changes model size, model and level of detail size depending on how far from the camera he is. And so sometimes you can do something like accidentally get him stuck the wrong size, which I did once. I was very proud of myself. Unfortunately, I lost the video of that.
This might be a conversation best suited for like bonus content or another episode, but I wanted to know if either you or Frank could speak to why it is such a tech issue for some games. I mean, at least from my layman's understanding of how technology works. And we have all this advanced technology now with PS5 and, you know, quadruple A games and teraflops of RAM and shit like that. why can't we take this 857 megabyte game from 1990 whenever on the Sega Saturn and make it available on PC or modern consoles? Like, it's like, we sent a man to the moon and now we're having a hard time making a prop plane fly. Like, why is that the thing?
There's a
that
difference.
Analogy might be very wrong.
No,
I understand.
No, it's correct. So there's a very large gulf between we can do it and we should do it. When it comes to running a profitable business and bringing old games back, the reason that basically every Sega Genesis game that Sega published is available is because emulating the Sega Genesis is like pretty much once you've got it, it's just drag and drop a file and it runs. The Saturn is just way too complicated to do that reliably. It ends up being sort of a one game at a time thing. It's a very specialized skill as well. And so the Saturn itself has never been sort of let's just call it like a drag and drop kind of system when it comes to emulating them. So your next step would be, okay, well, let's port the game. That source code's gone. Like, there's no way that they retained that. They didn't have like archival practices for that sort of thing in the age of the Saturn, because it was incredibly rare that you'd finish a game and go, well, like, let's hold on to this for, Panzer Dragoon Saga Remastered. We hadn't invented that concept yet of like remastering next gen.
Yeah, it's like TV before syndication.
Right. So, so it's, same reason that like Doctor Who episodes are lost or whatever, right? It's like there wasn't like a secondary market that they were thinking about, so they didn't properly archive it. Even if they had, expensive as hell to port that game from code, even if it's old. It doesn't matter how like low tech it was, like actually porting from source is costly. Yeah. Exactly.
And the reason that the Saturn specifically is difficult is because it had one chip for 2D graphics, one chip for 3D graphics, which were quads, not polygons, which are essentially, it's almost like superscalers where everything is skewed sprites
Never
that are
say
positionally.
That word to me again.
Superscalar?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Okay, that's a word I use a lot, so it'll be coming back. Superscalar is like Outrun or games pseudo 3D, where they would have a bunch of sprites that would scale toward you to simulate 3D.
Thank you.
And so the Saturn quads were like skewed sprites that were bent into a 3D shape, and then there was the sound chip, which was essentially the Genesis main chip, was kind of it was in a similar genre to that. And as an example of something that they would do, the Saturn could only do transparency through to a background on a 2D plane. But they wanted to do transparency in 3D in Burning Rangers. And so what they did was they fed the data from one of the graphics chips and stored it in the sound chip before passing it to the next chip, to the 3D chip, so that then they could have a transparent block that you could walk on.
So, I mean, the TLDR is that it's not a traditional system. You know, like Sega Genesis is like, I handle the graphics, I handle the sound, I handle the input. Like, combine us and we're a Sega Genesis. Like, the Saturn does all kinds of weird stuff. PS2 is kind of a similar situation.
I was going to say, like, is the PS3 a similar situation? Because I tell that
PS3 is easier than PS2 in some ways.
Yeah.
I heard the PS2 or the PS3 was just held together by wires and a prayer. Like, that was a notoriously difficult to emulate console.
PS3 was easy enough once they figured out. It was basically like the first like multi-threading console, and that took a little bit, but then it was easier thereafter.
Oh, I want to ask, what is the oldest mass market console that hasn't been emulated?
Pong.
Okay.
So I'm serious.
No, he's serious. Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't have ROMs. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it was all just circuitry.
Yeah, it's just circuitry.
And you could theoretically emulate that, but it's not. it's incredibly difficult and arcane and kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So the answer is Pong.
Should Pong be on this list?
No.
If you want to put it there, sure.
There are versions of it, but
we know how Frank feels about paddle-based games.
Do we?
So
I might not. Do we?
we discussed this on
Do I know how I feel about
we discussed this on literally last week's episode. But
Yes.
I understand. It's been a while.
You were talking about how much you hate Arkanoid.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I hate Arkanoid. I don't hate paddles.
And then we talked about Pong right after that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, never mind.
All right.
Nobody listens to this show even while they're doing it.
Where are we ranking Panzer Dragoon Saga?
I don't know what this game is. I've heard of it. I've never seen it. I have no idea where to put it.
It's a cool JRPG that no one can play.
It's beautiful. It's got great music. It's got it's like all vibes.
Yeah.
I personally would put it I would put it above or below Crazy Taxi, but that's me.
Frank, any opinion?
I mean, we just kind of hit the same situation every time we do one of these lists where it's like, well, what's the criteria? Is it like the most fun to just play right now? Is it like the most artistic? Is it the most important?
It's best.
It's all of that.
Thank
I think
you.
when you
It's
do
best.
rankings like this, like some of this has to come from your own, not from any kind of like handed down criteria. It has
course.
to involve some kind of personal stake in it. So I don't have one, so I'm going to abstain from this and let you two fight it out. But yeah, like all of that. And your own personal feelings about it too.
My personal theory about insert credit lists is that the nomination comes from a place of significance, but the ranking comes from a place of how good is it to play this game?
Right.
Yeah, like
to me,
vibes.
well, yeah, but it might be how good is it to play now, but it's also like, okay, well, this is a list of games you can't get anymore. So, do we weight things by
Their can't get ability.
types of experiences that you can't have, right? Like you can have a Panzer Dragoon Saga type experience with many other games.
Yeah.
You can't have a Rock Band experience with any other game.
Well,
Except
available.
Rock Band 4,
Rock
which
Band
is
4.
available.
Well, you can't get
Which you can buy.
the instruments. Brandon.
Yeah.
You can't go to the store and get instruments.
All right.
So that's where I get hung up on stuff like this.
All right.
Like as a game, it's below Silent Hill. As an out of print experience, it's below Rock Band for me.
But I think its out of printability is higher than many of these games because it was
never in print. Yeah.
It went out of print like immediately. It was straight out of print.
Like I think fewer people played it than PT.
Yeah.
That's fair.
For sure. 100%.
Okay.
Then put that under Silent Hill.
I'm happy putting this number 2.
Yeah.
All right, it's number 2.
Woo!
That takes us to our final ranking round.
Man,
Frank, what's your last game?
Our final franking round.
I'm gonna do one that I think you won't let me, and it's fine that you won't let me.
Okay.
And then we'll do
see.
one right after that. But
I appreciate Frank willing to break everything.
Well, I'm going to throw this out there and see if you would allow that.
Mhm.
We didn't allow it in our study, for what it's worth. Okay.
Okay.
So my favorite game, if I had to name one, is The Secret of Monkey Island.
Hmm.
The original version that the authors made in 1990 has been out of print since 1990. Every version that's come out since then has been a complete remake of the graphics. So I considered nominating the actual original made by the people who made the game, The Secret of Monkey Island. But technically, you can buy The Secret of Monkey Island Special Edition right now, which is a remake on top of another remake. So I don't know where this lands, right? So you can play the exact game with the exact logic, the exact writing and audio and all that, but every pixel in the game has been changed from the original. Is that
Are
a
you
remake?
trying to ship a Theseus this conversation?
I feel like you can have 99% of the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I would say that you could make this your choice, but there's got to be stronger choices than that one.
Okay. So
Is
like,
what I would say.
I would put it somewhere like it's closer to, it's more far off from the original than, for example, like the Star Wars Special Edition or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, to your point, 99%, I think I agree with that. Maybe I go like 95. So I'm okay with that being against the rules, but I think it's worth calling out that even when things are available, they can be done wrong.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
it's against the rules. I just think there might be strong. You might have other stronger candidates in your.
So my other two are more just like weird games I like.
Yeah, I think it deserves an honorable mention for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and also ran would be good for this kind of
Yeah.
list.
Okay.
That'll be in the show notes.
Because I've got a couple also rans too.
Okay. So we're down to something we've talked about way too often on the show and a game that I just kind of like that I don't think is great.
Let's do the way too often.
Let's do the way too often.
Raw Danger.
Raw Danger.
Raw Danger.
Raw Danger comes up on the show all the dang time.
Gotta catch up on the backlog, Ash.
I'm slowly working my way through, believe it or not.
Raw Danger is the second entry in what I guess we'd now call the Disaster Report series.
I guess so.
But what's it called in Japan?
Zettai
Zetsume Toshi.
Yeah, that thing. Raw Danger is, the second one. It's a PS2 game. It is a disaster survival adventure game.
That sounds awesome.
That takes place in a city that's being flooded on Christmas.
Oh, Ash, you would love this game, yeah.
I think you
I
might
love
love
disaster porn movies. Like, Roland Emmerich, where are you? We need you.
Do you also like Christmas movies?
Not so much.
Well, do you like Die Hard?
Yes.
Okay, it's like a Die Hard style.
Yeah,
like
it's a Christmas
takes place on
movie
Christmas
in the tradition of Die Hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is a disaster movie on Christmas in a flood, and it's a game about helping people around you, solving environmental puzzles with weird items that you find. It's also very funny.
Getting hats.
You get strange hats. You have really weird choices you can make. I will give you one from the very early game. You start off as a waiter in a restaurant that's like serving
But only
people.
blonde people.
Yeah, everyone's blonde in the American version. It's very funny. You start off working as a waiter, and you're playing through having to like serve appetizers to people, get the mayor who's there to give a speech, like his special bottled water, like crap like that. As you're doing that, as you're running back and forth from the kitchen to the reception area, you're starting to see like the carpet start soaking and stuff, which is just this incredible moment of storytelling. Like you just see it like kind of slowly escalating. Just to give you an example of weird decision making in this game, you end up kind of gathering everyone who survived the initial flood in the hotel above this bridge, and you're kind of trying to figure out what to do next. And the bridge collapses, and the chef from the restaurant, who moments ago was like, depending on how you played, like yelling at you for taking too long to serve the mayor's water or whatever, is now hanging off of the bridge, and you are above him. And like it gives you options on what you can do, like, try to grab his hand or say something. And one of the options is just smile at him. And it's like, what? Why is this an option? There's an option later in the game where, and by the way, you change perspectives. You play as 5 different characters. There's one toward the end of the game where you are a younger woman. You're being held at knife point by a psycho who wants to kill you in front of like a cop or something. I don't remember exactly. And it's like you have dialogue options for like what to try to say, and one of them is lick the knife. Like you can just lick it. So,
like Mac the Knife, but worse.
So and to, like Brandon said, you collect weird hats. There's always a compass on screen. You collect weird compasses shaped like Christmas trees and stuff like that. And you just like change out your compasses. I think it's the 3rd level where you play as a taxi driver within the disaster who is taxiing a reporter around who is very much using you, but their relationship is very funny and like completely non-romantic, which I appreciate. I love I love Raw Danger, and it's for me top of the list on this list right now.
This is Frank's Mass Effect. This is Frank's Dragon Age.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Raw Danger is good, and part of my decision to not mention games that I mention all the time was like, well, Frank's going to put Raw Danger in, so
I gave you 2. I gave you all choice.
Yeah,
I chose it.
Yeah.
No, it belongs here 100%.
Yeah,
I would be tempted to put it at the top, but what about you guys?
I like the premise, so I would put it under Silent Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with either 1 or 2.
Raw Danger is also, I will just add, like, even if you do get it and play it, it's not very performant. And that's very sad. So it's also like a nice sad story of like, we should have better. We should actually have the ability to play this game correctly, and we don't.
Yeah, it's less playable than Silent Hill right now. Yeah. For whatever we feel about that.
That's a reason to knock it down a point, I think. Number 2, I'm happy with. Everyone happy with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Ash, it's your last pick.
It's my last pick. This is a weird one. I don't know how you guys feel about it. You've definitely heard of it, but I like it. It's the most inaccessible game to me personally. I just thought it was a really fun, cool game that...
Wait, it's inaccessible, but it's your favorite?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's my favorite.
Interesting. Very curious.
I was going to say, like, I was saving my top spot for Elite Beat Agents, but I feel like Frank...
Oh, that was my other one, Ash.
Yeah.
When I gave an option of 2, my other one was Elite Beat
Oh,
Agents.
was it really?
Yeah.
I felt like your whole Rock Band thing kind of like was the stand-in for Elite Beat Agents, because I think that's probably one of the best games that ever happened on the Nintendo DS that you can't buy anymore. But that form of game has already been represented on this list, so I was going to go for something else. And the something else that I chose was Mr. Bones, an Ed Annunziata joint.
Mr.
Wow.
Bones.
Mr. Bones.
Yes.
Mr. Bones and me.
Yeah. I love that game.
Right.
It's a fun game. I only found out about this game like couple years ago, and it seems the things that you get up to in that game, and you're basically like this skeleton who plays guitar, and there are these like really long segments where you're playing a guitar for a crowd and you have to light up Mr. Bones in the corner. It doesn't really make sense.
This is not a good game. Everyone should know this is not a good game.
But it's a cool
It's very interesting.
game.
Very interesting.
It's very vibes based game that I enjoy only because of its vibes. And that's why I chose it. And you can't get it anywhere because apparently it's a Sega Saturn game, and it's tougher than shit to emulate that game. So yeah, those were my last 2 picks. And I decided to go for Mr. Bones.
Poor Elite Beat Agents got pushed aside by both of us. That's
Yeah.
got to be on. Oh, it is an
It's on our
honorable mention.
amendment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is very funny because I think this game's pretty bad.
What don't you like about it?
I don't know. It's just from that era of just 90s multimedia, just nothing experiences, just like slopped together with a, I don't know.
Now, are you evaluating it then or evaluating it now within the
Both?
context? Okay. Because I am of a different mind. Like, it probably was what you say it was when it released, but looking at this game now, like with, the kind of ways that, we make video games now and the kind of experiences that we have, I feel like it's extremely unique. And I just always thought it was like really cool that the way that it plays with like perspective and shadow for a Sega Saturn game. I'm not very smart in terms of technical capabilities. I don't know if that's something that was easy to do at that time, but it seemed like this is a Sega Saturn game? That's actually really cool. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like what that game does now, which I think is very interesting and why it increases its appeal to me. Because it seems very creative now with all of even with all of the games that we have now with their like super impressive graphics and shit like that. We are not lacking for quirky, fun games, but I just think it has a level of creativity to it that I just don't see nowadays, which is why I like it so much. Or I don't traffic enough in indie games, and I should get better about that.
I don't either, but I assume that there are indie games every week that do a lot of the things Mr. Bones did that you like.
You could say Mr. Bones is a trendsetter then.
Maybe so.
Mr. Bones was coming from the Laserdisc game tradition where you had an FMV background of some sort with moving things on top of that. It was sprites in the Laserdisc game days and 3D polygonal things. The problem with Mr. Bones is that it is not particularly responsive, and it's very difficult to get through. So I think the vibes are neat and interesting, but it's hard to get to those.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you play it, or did you watch?
Like,
people
I've
play it?
watched several Let's Plays of it. I'm pretty sure we have a Sega Saturn in the house, but I don't think we have a TV capable of playing it.
Yeah, there's some games like Sub-Zero, Mortal Kombat Anthology or whatever, where if you watch someone play it well, the game looks like it's actually really good. And then,
but if you try to play it yourself,
If you try to play it
I
yourself,
understand that. I understand that, and that's a limitation that I accept with some of my nominations and experiences with video games overall, because I don't have a lot of time.
But I think it's fun to have Mr. Bones on here. It's
Yeah,
bizarre.
no, I'm thrilled that it's here.
Yeah.
Like, I want to put it number 1. Let's go.
Yeah, and I think the just cultural place that video games exist in now is that video games aren't first-person experiences exclusively anymore. And for the majority of people,
they are consuming it secondhand. Yeah,
exactly. And I feel like judging video games purely by how they are to play is not really representative of what that game is the way most people experience it.
Yeah, it's that's a whole probably we should have a topic for that later.
Yeah, let's talk about that next week.
That's a whole deal. I have a lot of things to say about that. It's definitely interesting and weird. I do think Mr. Bones is weird and cool. I like the Japanese cover.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that is.
Like, imagine if Grateful Dead made a video game. And please don't correct me if they did. But that would be what Mr. Bones is.
Oh, that makes me like it less.
I know Jerry Garcia bought the rights to Sirens of Titan at one point.
Bottom of the list now for me.
Yeah. You just argued yourself below Concord, I'm afraid.
Yeah. The Jam Band video game, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Where are we putting this thing?
Y'all, I don't care where you put it. I'm just glad that it got mentioned. I'm just glad to be nominated, honestly.
Let's put it above Concord.
Yeah, let's put it above Concord.
That
poor Concord really did have a bad fur day. Brandon, it's up to you to put the very last game on our list.
Okay, I'm going to do it.
Before you do, if you'd like to make any honorable mentions, now's a good time to do that.
Oh, God. I have so many. Okay, so I'll honorable mentionize all the ones that I didn't put on because we talk about them all the time.
Okay.
And when he's done, can I add one more honorable mention?
You absolutely can.
Okay.
Outrun Online Arcade.
Mm-hmm.
It's a travesty. You can't play that. You can't play any of the Outrun 2s.
That would have been my nomination.
Yeah. Garoden and Garoden Break Blow and Fist or Twist, my favorite 3D fighting games. You can't play those. You cannot currently play any Oscar 120% games. Can't buy them. There will be one coming soon. But none of those games are playable. That's my favorite 2D fighting game series. Ribbit King, which I love. Ribbit King is the frog golf game. My partner just got a tattoo of the frog on her arm. And Nights into Dreams, can't play that for some reason. F-Zero GX, I don't know if you'll ever be able to play that. Weirdly, you can't play any of the Resistance or Killzone games, except for the one that's on PS4. There's one Killzone on PS4, but none of the Resistance games can you purchase. They've got to do a remaster of all three of those at some point.
Is that the one with the guy with the lightning powers?
No, you're thinking of Infamous.
Yeah.
Resistance is the one with the skull with 3 eyes on it on the cover.
Yeah, Resistance and Killzone are both, those are the two Sony responses to Halo.
Yeah, the Halo killers.
Yeah. Spec Ops The Line.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Ranger X. And if I were doing the only Saturn games published by Sega, I was still going to do Panzer Dragoon Saga. I was going to do Sakura Taisen, Burning Rangers, and either Magic Knight Rayearth or Sega Rally Championship. It's really weird you can't play Sega Rally Championship. Also put on Dino Crisis 2, Ridge Racer 7. Interestingly, you can still play Ridge Racer 6 because of Microsoft's backward compatibility thing with Xbox One. So you can buy the store version of Ridge Racer 6, but 7 you can't. Wipeout 2097/XL, can't buy the second Wipeout game. That's weird. Parasite Eve, can't buy Parasite Eve.
I was going to put that on my list too, but I did not.
Bushido Blade, Snatcher, Valkyria Chronicles 2, and then a very special honorable mention to my own video game, Oh Dear, which you cannot legally
That was a
purchase.
good game.
Yeah, we're working on it at some point, hopefully, probably. But yeah, you can't buy our own game right now, which is
didn't that have that scary word in it that you're not allowed to say to Ash?
Oh, super scaling?
It was
Super
absolutely
scaling.
a super
yes,
scaling.
yes.
Yeah.
It is a super scaler.
I was
super
trying to
3D,
get you to say it again.
pseudo 3D game. Anyway, I guess I should give my final one. I'm going more obscure here. Puyo Puyon, and I also do talk about this game sometimes. It is a Puyo Puyo game you can't buy. Puyo Puyo was a big series in Japan, and they still do big tournaments over there. If not for that, Insert Credit wouldn't exist, because that's the game that had me and Vincent Diamante meet in our college dorms when a super weird Christian guy introduced us to each other, because we both had Dreamcasts and we both had that game. And if not for that, this whole thing wouldn't exist. And so that's why I'm putting it on there. You can't play it
Was your friend like, you know who else had a dream cast upon the earth?
That's right. Exactly. So yeah, but it is also my favorite Puyo Puyo game because it's totally unbalanced. Special meters that you fill up do these crazy, completely game-breaking effects that can turn the tide of battle 100%. They weren't balanced, so like the strongest characters are just the strongest characters, but it's kind of fun to not use them. And it also has like, as an early Dreamcast game, I think it was maybe even a launch title. No, it was launch year in Japan, so it was still 1998. It's like this weird, really high-res 2D, so it still sort of looked like something that you couldn't do on the last gen, even though they did wind up making a PlayStation version after the Dreamcast one. But it had this really different vibe to it that I liked a lot. So Puyo Puyo 4, Puyo Puyon, as it's called, is my next one, and it doesn't have to be high up on the list. I just think it deserves to be there.
It's been with us since the beginning.
Well, I think you have to place it first.
Yeah. I just put it above Mr. Bones.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Ash or Frank, did you have any more nominations you wanted to make honorable mentions?
Something that Phil Salvador mentioned to me before I started recording was Lemmings is just not a game you can buy. So
Oh, wow.
that's weird.
That is
Really?
weird.
Yeah.
I thought there was a collection.
I don't think so. A collection
Weird.
of what? Like Lemmings and Lemmings 2?
Yeah, weren't there some other Lemmingses?
Why is Lemmings weird? Like, why
It's a
is it
huge
weird
game.
that you can't? Oh, is it?
Oh yeah, it was like
Yeah.
it was like if you had an Amiga, you had
That
Lemmings.
was the killer app, yeah.
Okay, how many
It's
people had
also,
an
like,
Amiga?
a few million.
The game that made Rockstar. Like, that's Rockstar's
Right.
first
Oh,
hit.
okay. That makes sense now.
Like,
Interesting.
there are actual, like, Lemmings statues in Scotland.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge deal in the early 90s, but
Yeah.
not enough for it to be preserved anywhere.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Well, it's Psygnosis. Sony owns that. Where's
Right.
Sony going to publish things that require a mouse? You know,
Yeah,
they're
that's
they
fair.
don't put their old games on GOG or whatever. So
yeah, not yet. Anyway,
it's just gone.
that's too bad.
So weird.
Ash, any more from you?
I've got a couple. So SSX Tricky, which
Mhm.
probably might be a musical thing, like licensing, because you can get SSX and you can get SSX 3 on the Xbox store, but you can't get SSX Tricky. Don't know why. That was a fun
It's
game.
because it's tricky.
It's tricky to. No, I won't go into
Yeah.
some. Diddy Kong Racing. Fucking love that game. It is not available on the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. It should be. That was, in my opinion, the superior kart racer to Mario Kart 64.
Correct.
You can fight me about it. You will lose. And then one more that I think represents a kind of overlooked platform for the list that we've had. Sailor Moon Drops. I really enjoyed the Match 3 mobile only Sailor Moon
Oh.
game that you cannot play anymore. I still have it on my phone. I don't know if it works. I haven't booted it up. I'm scared to try to do it. But I might have to do it later. But yeah, you can't. They took that game down in 2019. Can't play it anymore. Love that fucking game. I love Match 3 games. And a Sailor Moon one. Oh, all about it. Can't do it
All right.
anymore.
You know, there
if-
was an Italian only Sailor Moon for the DS.
Oh, Mamma
No.
Mia.
Yeah, it's not.
Is that the one where Sailor Moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie? Boom!
That's right. That's the very same.
Should I be offended?
It's weird. The DS was such a strange universe. I worked on a game for the DS that only came out in France,
Wow.
but it was made in Thailand. You know, that was the DS.
No one knows the French better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense to me, honestly.
Well, I guess we did it.
We sure did it.
Did anyone figure out my?
What was your secret criterion?
Oh, hang on. Let me look at. I forgot. So
Take a look.
Silent Hill, Panzer Dragoon Saga, Virtual Cop 2, and Puyo Puyon. Okay.
Yeah.
We already had this discussion like the last time we recorded. Like, I don't do connections very well, so I'm going to fail this.
Yeah.
Jeffy,
Uh,
it's simpler than you think.
yeah. I'm looking at letter structures. I'm looking at word structures. I'm looking
Well,
at.
they're all
no.
developed in Japan.
That's
Yeah,
what I
we'll
was
start
going to
there.
say.
It's not that.
Okay.
I think they're all from the 90s, unless Puyo Puyon was not a launch title.
It
Yeah.
was from the 90s, but it's also not that.
Well, I got two.
Yeah.
They all have very low draw distances.
Right. Okay, shall I just tell you?
Yeah,
yes,
go ahead.
please.
Okay. I chose the first, second, third, and fourth games in a series.
Yeah,
Wow.
you sure did.
Silent Hill 1, Virtual Cop 2,
Cup 2,
Panzer Dragoon Saga is the third
the
Panzer
third
Dragoon,
one, and Puyo Puyo is
Puyo
the
is
fourth
the fourth
Puyo
Puyo
Puyo.
Puyo.
Did you do that on purpose, or did it just happen to
I
work
did.
out that way?
Yes.
No,
I did that on
Brendan's real
purpose.
big into numerology.
Just for fun.
Seriously?
Yeah, because there were so many to choose from. Like,
I like it.
if you look around my room, it's full of games
You can't
that
get
aren't
anywhere.
that you can't get anymore. I had so many choices that I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do a little extra something. That's what I did.
All right, you fooled us. If
Nice.
you, the listener, would like to see a written out version of this list, you could find it forums.insertcredit.com. You can find it on our Patreon. I'm not going to read it out loud to you. You're going to have to engage with some kind of community to do that. And on
Blast
your
it.
own head be it. Before we sign off, Frank, I'd like to talk with you a little bit about like why games go out of print. We've talked about technological limitations. We've
Sure.
talked about licensing issues. What are the greater causes of the fact that like we have so much video game obsolescence?
Those are the two.
Yeah.
That's it. Like the video game industry, like any for-profit industry, is based on numbers, and numbers don't tend to work for video games. I guess if there's a bigger takeaway than license and tech costs, it's to maybe extrapolate the tech costs and just say that games aren't films. They're not books. They're made for distinct pieces of technology that intentionally are sunsetted and changed. Any movie is just, a synchronized series of still images and audio, right? And so movies are like infinitely portable to whatever the next thing is that plays movies. Games do not live in that world. Games are made for distinct pieces of hardware that are almost never backwards compatible. And so it's just a situation where the tech is expensive for the most part to get a game working. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but it does mean that, it is a cost. And for the most part, people don't buy old games. It's not that healthy of a market. The old games that you do see for sale tend to just be, Namco or Atari or whatever, just like brought out their 80s stuff again, and you don't tend to see much more than that, and it's just because of cost, and then the licensing again is like it's a similar problem to what we discussed earlier about tech, which is that we kind of gave that example with Panzer Dragoon Saga of like, I don't think there were like strict archival practices where they kept the source material for Panzer Dragoon Saga in case they need to use it again. They probably didn't. And for similar reasons, I don't think that game companies kept very good records of what they own and don't own in terms of content.
I've seen some of those yourself.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah, I've tried to license games when I worked at Digital Eclipse. I actually had surprisingly good conversations with Konami back in the day, and I would ask them about games, and they would go look and be like, yeah, we can't substantiate that we own every part of that.
Right.
So it's just out of print forever. This is something that, again, like the tech, could be solved with money, but the money is almost never worth it. The cost of like paying a lawyer to figure this out is probably more expensive than your profit margin for that old game. So they just don't happen. I will also say, for better or worse, the video game industry it wasn't Hollywood until a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? Like Hollywood has been like a 3 to 5 studio thing forever, whereas games have been like, a 300 studio thing that's now like a 6 studio thing. Things just tended to get lost in transit when companies shut down, got acquired, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of that stuff's just plain lost, like source wise. But yeah, all kinds of reasons, all of them involving money.
Yeah, I would just add a few things to that just because they're interesting. Sega and I think Square Enix and Namco just did a kind of roundtable on preservation, and they're getting more serious about it now. But some interesting things are like a bunch of these are like arcade companies. They have old arcade legacies, but it costs a lot of money to store all the arcades, the actual arcade cabinets. And so quite often they get rid of those and just keep the PCB. Or like Frank said about keeping the source, very often that is not there. And I just got recently asked about the work I did on Samurai Showdown 5 Perfect, and whether we ever considered bringing the fatalities from Samurai Showdown 5 and putting it into Perfect, because that was what was excised from that game in order to make room for story. And the answer was no, because we didn't have any access to source whatsoever. What we had was a ROM.
Right.
And going along with the licensing thing, people wondered why, again, in Samurai Showdown, why didn't we have the arranged tracks from the Neo Geo CD versions? And the answer to that is SNK didn't own or didn't fully own that music, because it was published by Pony Canyon, like in the CD version. And when it was published that way, they got the rights. So like when you're a musician and you sign on, at least this is how it was in the 80s, when you're a musician and you signed on with a publisher like, say, Sony Music or whatever, they then also got the rights to everything you made before that, even if you were independent at that time. And so there's like music that musicians have made and released independently that can't come out anymore because it's not worth it for Sony to do that. And they're not legally allowed to do that themselves. There's just a lot of weird rights nonsense involved. And sometimes you don't even know who owns it, because somebody died or it got bought by some pachinko company and then it got portioned out to something, and somebody owns 25% of it, someone else owns, like the Pico Interactive, their entire model, as far as I can tell, is going after licenses where they paid somebody, but they're just hoping that nobody else comes forward. And I know for a fact that some of the games that they have licensed, other companies own part of that were not involved in the discussion, but it's hard enough for those companies to prove that they own that part that they don't bother.
It's a forgiveness permission structure.
It's also such a low margin,
right? It's like you
thing
want
to like sue Pico Interactive over the $5 he made on Mr. Glover. Not Mr. Glover, just Glover.
No, Mr. Glover was my father.
I was mixing up Glover and Mr. Bones, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll add a couple other things if you were done, Brandon. Yeah. Even when a company knows they own something and other people know that they own that thing, sometimes they overvalue it. Like Warner Brothers, very famously, currently is overvaluing their IP. They think that Paperboy is worth as much as Mortal Kombat. So all of the sort of like Atari game stuff that Warner Brothers has is just being sort of dragon ported, waiting for that big payoff that is never going to come. So that's why that stuff's out of print. And then something else I'll say is that just to demonstrate, I think a really good demonstration of actually, let me back up a little more there. Like you mentioned Sega. Sega is one of the few companies that's like independent and has a large catalog, right? There's just not that many of them.
Yeah.
It makes sense to invest in your back catalog if you have a large one. There's just not that many companies that do. Nintendo, of course, would be another one. We have some insight into Nintendo's backup policies and their archives in what we call the Giga Leak that happened a few years ago. So people have probably seen a lot of the sort of rough draft Mario World art and Link to the Past art and stuff like that was like leaked out as part of that. There is a report in there of, well, first of all, I should tell you, having looked through this over someone's shoulder, I don't have it myself, of course.
Of course.
This isn't like organized. You know what I mean? It's just a bunch of data. And that data, we have a report in there. They did back up their old systems, but basically they just kind of took a computer and backed up the entire computer onto a tape and put the tape in a closet and then got rid of the computers. There's a report in there. I forget the exact numbers, but they had something like 48 tapes and they recovered 4. And the other 44 they were unable to recover. So they did sort of back some stuff up, not very well, and then they weren't able to recover it after the fact. So even in a case where someone has a large back catalog, actually did the work to back the stuff up, they might not like be able to recover it after the fact.
Yeah.
Because data, especially in the old days, was really hard to store en masse. So all kinds of challenges.
Yeah, like SNK used to have, I think it was 5 buildings in Osaka all around, and they all had their own files in there. And then they slowly lost all those buildings over time. One of the last to go was their warehouse, and the warehouse was sold along with whatever was in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And so it was just, it was just
some
gone.
Storage Wars guy has it.
And there's a guy who, well, actually, it probably went to landfill because it's not worth. Whoever bought it was buying a warehouse. They didn't want all the junk in there, so it probably just went away into Nowheresville. There was one guy who really liked to take care of package design, and because of him, they have a bit of an archive, like a physical archive of many of the originals of the like game covers and marquees and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's all just like in these books with tissue paper in between them. They're just there. Eventually, I know that paper is one of the best storage mediums still, but
absolutely, yeah.
Those things do got to get scanned.
A lot of what we have is just a guy held on to a thing.
Well, that's the thing too. Yeah, like there's also not a lot of continuity of staff. In that case, that guy was there for a really long time, I believe, at SNK.
Yeah.
Another example of that would be Nintendo. Once in a while, there's maybe an exhibit or, photos taken for Iwata Asks, and like Miyamoto brings out, the design stuff for like Mario. I don't believe that stuff is in a quote unquote archive. Maybe it is now, as of recent years. I think that was just in Miyamoto's desk, like on the shelves in his desk for the last like 30. You know what I mean? Like, because he happened to still be there. So yeah, a lot of this history is just not kept in any formal way.
The frustrating story of talking to some DIMPS employees who worked on the Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Yeah.
And I was like, what other games were there that were, I was like, oh yeah, we had Samurai Showdown 3 Pocket. That was basically done. We had this other one, that other one. I was like, where are those? And they're like, oh, they were in a drawer somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so frustrating to hear about these things that we could have had, that somebody had, that now are, they're just gone. There's no trace of those.
Many, many stories like that.
Yeah. I'm reminded of when I interviewed you, Frank, about this subject like a few months ago, like 6 months ago or whatever. It's been a while now. And the thing I closed that piece on was like, steal your stuff. And how you have to legally say like, you should steal your stuff. Don't steal your stuff, but also very much steal your stuff.
GDC attendees. Yeah. Just put your stuff in a box.
My speculative fiction novel, like the year is 2150 and Nintendo is finally about to be shuttered, and it's up to a group of like these enterprising youths that wanted to get into the video game industry and got a job at Nintendo that's soon about to close down because it's 2150, and they decide to pull off one final heist where they steal all of Nintendo's archives to like preserve them for the future. Like, that's my speculative fiction video game idea.
Well, they will get about 10% of the data that they got off the tapes once.
I think the final boss should be Miyamoto's floating head.
Oh, Brain Age?
Was
that not Miyamoto?
That was not
Miyamoto.
Dr.
Kawasaki,
Ishikawa.
Oh, Ishikawa? Okay. Who's Kawasaki? He was somebody else.
Anyway, it's a polygonal head, no matter what. That's the
polygonal head.
Yeah. All right.
Steal your stuff.
Did we answer the question?
Yes, you sure did. Before we go, I'd like to do a quick update on our credit report. Frank, you have 2 credits. Ash, you have 4 credits, which you can still spend whenever you like.
Yes.
Here's something I've been holding back this entire time.
Oh, no.
I had a secret credit in reserved for whoever ended up nominating the number 1 game on our list. Brandon, the 5th credit goes to you.
Nice.
You now have 5 credits to spend at your leisure.
I was thinking, somebody's got to spend credits eventually.
Somebody's got to, sure.
Right?
Do they?
We can't keep sitting on them forever.
So here's the question. If I want to make everyone play a game, can I slightly caveat it?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if we can make this happen. I would like for everyone to play Knuckles Chaotix with their partner.
Huh.
I will do that.
Because Knuckles Chaotix, I think it's a pretty easy game. You can beat it in a few hours, and I think it's way more fun if you play it with another person that you like. That's how I played through it the first time. When I played all the way through it, it'll be an interesting experience because it gets crapped on as one of the worst Sonic games or whatever. But I think aside from certain parts, I think it's very interesting. And so I assume that along with this, we will discuss it. It will become a topic. We will discuss
it will become a discussion.
That's part. Okay. All right. I'm spending my 4 credits.
All right. For due dates, because we haven't discussed what the turnaround time is.
Yeah.
I'm going to say we have a month. How's that?
All right.
I'm going to also caveat, like, if you are doing this, you have to inform the other panelists how and where to get the game and how to play it.
We can discuss that off mic.
Yeah. Yeah, because guess what? You can't purchase this.
It's not on the Sonic Origins Plus collection?
No, the 32X games never made it through to any sort of
I could have swore.
In fact, if you'd like to help finance these credit spendings, you might want to consider supporting the show at patreon.com/insertcredit. You could also sponsor an episode by writing to me at show@insertcredit.com with your advertisement or personal message. We could work something out. You could join our community at forums.insertcredit.com. You could watch our show on youtube.com/insertcreditshow. You could also help our visibility by rating and reviewing us wherever and however you can. You're never too late to wishlist Demon School on Steam. Never too early to make your donations to Video Game History Foundation. And right on time to get more of Ash Parish by subscribing to The Verge. This episode was edited by Esper Quinn with music by Kurt Feldman. I'm Alex Jaffe.
I'm Frank Cifaldi.
I'm Ash Parish.
I'm Brandon Sheffield.
And your game has now been saved.
Ash, are you familiar with Counting Crows?
I know the band.
Do you know why we're saying Mr. Bones and Me?
Yeah.
Like Counting Crows' maybe most famous song is Mr. Jones and Me.
Oh.
So that's. I could sense that you didn't know why we kept saying that. So
you're
totally
better
fine.
off.
No, it's not a good song. It's not a good song. If you were 10 years older, you would not have been able to avoid that song. Luckily for you, you're not.
I appreciate the fact that I get to be both like the red shirt of the show that also brings in like a different perspective, because you guys have your older games. Like that's where your wheelhouse is. And I get to learn things from you guys that maybe not all of the listeners know as well. And we all get to learn together. Like I'm the POV character for this show, but I also have like my own shit.
Ash, you are fulfilling the role on the show that I fulfilled in 2012. I have amassed too much secondhand knowledge to be that useful, but you're bringing it back, and I really appreciate that.
I appreciate it too because I get to learn shit, and I was serious, Frank. That tidbit about NBA Jam did kind of make me tear up a little bit. So I appreciate learning it.
You're welcome.
Yes.
No, it's beautiful.
Yes,
it's beautiful to learn how games work sometimes.